How much money are we talking about in these hidden reserves, and why are they such a big risk?
Well, I think there's probably a couple $1 trillion if you want to take a very broad view in additional foreign assets under the control of China's state. That includes some of the funds that have been set up under the control of the state agency for foreign exchange, SAFE. That includes some of the entrusted loans that have been provided to allow the policy banks to do a lot of external lending. But it also includes a roughly $1 trillion net foreign asset position in the state commercial banks. And that net foreign asset position has moved in some ways in the same way you would expect reserves to move if the state banks were being used to help manage the yuan. So my personal view is that the $3 trillion number that you showed is sort of an artificial number. It shows what China wants to show the world. It doesn't show their the true net foreign asset position of the Chinese state.
Brad, hold on a second, because we're getting breaking news at the moment. We are getting more details on the schedule of Secretary Yellen in China. Now, we understand that she will be meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang at 4:30 a.m. This is in Eastern time. She'll also be meeting with former Vice Premier Liu He at 10 a.m. Central time. Now, she will be attending a dinner at 6 p.m. in Beijing with think tank CF40. But of course, the key one that we're watching right now in terms of policymaking and perhaps a thawing of bilateral relations is that meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang in this visit to China. Let's return to Brad Setzer. And Brad, of course, they are now expected to discuss many challenging issues between the two sides, and one of them including debt relief for developing economies. Tell us a little bit about why these hidden reserves are so important in terms of what China can do with them in terms of providing this credit to the world.
Well, I mean, the key source of hidden reserves was a decision that China took back in 2010 to diversify its reserves using the policy banks, using some state investment funds. So at least in my view, the underlying source that has fueled the expansion of Chinese credit globally over the past 12 years has been money that in many cases was provided to the policy banks out of the reserves. That would imply that the policy banks, that the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, the PBOC, the central government has a certain amount of leverage over the policy banks if they wanted to push the policy banks to take losses. So I think it does suggest, along with the recent deal in Zambia, that there's maybe a little bit of hope for a constructive path forward. But that ultimately hinges on the willingness of the policy banks to take some losses.
Brad, what do you think of the local government debt situation? Because we know that the leverage when it comes to government debt was an issue even prior to COVID zero, and we know that COVID zero put an enormous amount of strain when it comes to local government coffers. Does that play into the idea that there is plenty of fiscal buffer for Beijing to be playing with?
Look, I think you have to differentiate when thinking about China's fiscal capacity between the local governments, which are very constrained. They're going to be adversely affected by the downturn in the property market. I think that's now well understood. Their dependence and their interconnections with the real estate sector, with revenues from land sales and the like. The strange thing about China over the past 15 years is that almost all the stimulus has come from local governments, local government vehicles. The central government actually has a very pristine balance sheet. The central government's debt is only about 25% of China's GDP. I mean, compared to the other major economies of the world, that's a very low number. So China's central government has fiscal space, local governments don't, and it's just a matter of finding a way to use the central government's fiscal capacity to provide a bit of stimulus. You can't rely on the local governments or local government financing vehicles in the same way because they've built up such a large stock of debt. They're going to struggle to repay. The central government can borrow without limit, in my view.